The Vikings just robbed the 49ers with the sneakiest of trades to solidify this offense and give Kevin O'Connell all the tools he needs to drive this offense all the way. We're going to be breaking down all that in this episode of Vikings Digest, so first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all Vikings updates as we continue to make moves. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Vikings trade for a gem. So Adam Schefter just broke that the 49ers are trading Jordan Mason to the Minnesota Vikings, with the Vikings signing Mason at a 2-year deal worth over $7 million, fully guaranteed at signing, with a maximum value of $12 million, probably with incentives, negotiated by Jason and Michael Katz. And he went on to elaborate on the details of the trade further, saying Minnesota sends a 2026 6th-round pick and a pick number 160 this year to San Francisco. And we get from the San Francisco 49ers, Jordan Mason, and pick number 187 this year for us to use in the draft. So this is something that where Minnesota, we knew that they were going to go out and make some sort of move to pair with along with Aaron Jones. We needed that 1-2 combo punch that the Lions have, that a lot of other teams are starting to get now, where, hey, there's a formula and it seems to work. And when we have a quarterback like JJ McCarthy, where he's very reliant on his running back, whether it's in the run game alone or having another weapon to throw to, Minnesota now has that 1-2 punch where we can run two running back sets, in a split backfield, and JJ McCarthy can drop it off to either one of them when the pass coverage is pulled deep, when they're covering Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Jalen Nailor, and any other weapons that we are going to have along the way. This is going to be a very explosive offense next season, and it's going to be very exciting to watch. And Jordan Mason, the reason why I say he's a gem is when you look at the production that he put up this season. He did fill in after Christian McCaffrey got hurt again, but in the first half of this season, before he himself got hurt, he was on fire over the course of the season, totaling a career best 789 yards with a career best in touches at 153 as well. And in less games, instead of playing 16 and 17, he was playing 12 in a more predominant role as well, scoring 3 touchdowns along the way. He did fumble it 3 times, but he only lost one of them. So that goes to show a good thing for the Vikings as well. We know Aaron Jones has fumbled a little bit this past season, but they're going to hopefully shape that up for this season. Then you have as well in the receiving end of things, he did have 11 catches for 91 yards over the course of the 12 games as well. And he did have a pretty decent average yarding per catch. And he is someone that JJ McCarthy can use not only in the running game, but in the passing game, like I said. And this is something where Minnesota has that speed to go with Aaron Jones's power. We know Aaron Jones isn't necessarily the fastest of backs until he gets to the linebacker and the DBs and the safeties. Jordan Mason, he's fast right off the line of scrimmage. We saw those explosive plays last season that had a lot of big play touchdowns. Aaron Jones got a lot of those as well, but Jordan Mason, he pops off the line of scrimmage, torches teams right off the bat, and that's what's going to be so hard to game plan for, is which of those backs is going to torch you and how do you want to get torched. That's the thing that Detroit gets the luxury of having. Now we have that luxury. It's not to say Ty Chandler isn't useful. His speed is his most valuable asset, but we've seen in the past that, especially that season when Alexander Mattison was our RB1, and how Ty Chandler was rotated in there and how teams kind of game plan for him or adjusted mid-game, it was very hard for him to get going and to get that speed really accelerating, where Jordan Mason, that acceleration is already there, and we're going to have a perfect offensive line to run behind to perfectly complement this run game. And that's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is this offense is insane. So we look at the depth chart for this team now going into next season. We have Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason in the backfield. We got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Nailor, TJ Hawkinson, Josh Oliver as well. Then you have CJ Ham still at fullback. Then you look at the offensive line with Christian Darrisaw, Blake Brandel as well, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, Brian O'Neill. Then you have Garrett Bradbury on the back end. We thought that Garrett Bradbury was probably going to get traded to the 49ers. That's why I was surprised to see the details of this trade, being that we didn't have to give up any players for him. So right now, as of now, Minnesota still has Garrett Bradbury as a backup center. And in our last video, I was saying how that's very useful for Minnesota to have, because we saw what it was like losing Darrisaw. We saw what it was like losing Brian O'Neill and how detrimental it was to Minnesota in the games when it mattered most, because those were the games that we lost this season. Christian Darrisaw earlier in the season against the Rams, we lost on Thursday night. Lost Brian O'Neill in the playoff game against the Rams, we lost that game as well. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So I really like the idea of keeping Bradbury around so that you have that insurance policy at center, so that if our Pro Bowl center goes down, we have someone to put in there that isn't going to be a liability or having to step into a next man up mentality. He's going to be already ready to go, and someone that Minnesota has drafted and has entrusted for a very long time with this franchise. Now, in terms of Jordan Mason, he's going to have an all-pro offensive line to run behind here. Lots of Pro Bowlers on that line and very great protection for him in the run game and J.J. McCarthy in the passing game. Now, with these things as well, the big thing with Aaron Jones that I've mentioned before is that he's not a 20 touch back. He's very much a 15 to 16 touch back, and that's where Jordan Mason will be that perfect complementary back for him. It's not going to be an Alexander Mattison situation where he's not going to be able to step into that number one role if there is an injury or something where Aaron Jones needs to come out for a few reps. Alexander Mattison was someone that we thought, or at least we were optimistic about the chance of him taking over for Dalvin Cook. That clearly didn't work out. He got shipped off to Vegas, and we've seen what he's able to do there. And then they brought in Rico Dowdle to be the number one back there to go along with Mattison. Now, Minnesota needs that 1-2 punch to compete with Detroit. We thought we had that with Mattison and Cook back in the day. It was close, but it wasn't quite there. The Lions took what we established there, and they ran with it with that Gibbs and Montgomery combo. And it has been torching us ever since they've been able to crack that code. Now we have a chance to kind of get a measure of revenge there and have an offensive line to back it up as well, because Minnesota's offensive line, as we've known over the past basically the past few decades, or past decade at least, where it's been very Swiss cheese, it's been very spotty, and it's been very hard to kind of perfect that offensive line. We've seen how, as much as it sucks to say, we've seen how Detroit has been able to kind of really invest in doing a offensive line over a long stretch of time. Minnesota tried playing the long game with the offensive line. Hasn't exactly worked out except for Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw and Garrett Bradbury until recently being a starter. Now, Minnesota, they decided, hey, let's go out and do that in one offseason. Let's just go do that in free agency and see what we can do to make sure that we have the right pieces around J.J. McCarthy. Or, as much as that we don't want to accept it, the reports are picking up steam of Aaron Rodgers coming to Minnesota. So whether it's J.J. McCarthy or Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be very well protected, and these running backs are going to have great seasons. I'm very, very excited to see if Aaron Jones can eclipse the career best numbers he put up last season, even though he probably won't have as many touches, but he's going to have a lot more explosive opportunities to get to that second level, which is where we see him really turn on the Jets and where we see his best football. Jordan Mason, he's going to be able to torch defenses that way too. So we're going to catch guys off guards. We're going to catch teams on their heels where they're going to try and play us up front, and we're going to be able to torch them with Jordan Mason. They're going to play up back. We're going to torch them with Aaron Jones there. So there's going to be a lot of mobility that we're going to have without having to pass it 30 times a game. That's going to be a lot of onus to put on J.J. McCarthy. If it's Aaron Rodgers, even Aaron Rodgers, he can throw for that many times a game, but he's getting very old. So he's over 40, so he's not going to be able to throw for 30 times a game every single game. If you have a running back combo that can take about 30 touches a game, that's going to go a long way towards J.J. McCarthy being more comfortable and being more settled. Going to go a long way towards Aaron Rodgers staying healthy if he's the quarterback. So there's a lot of potential with this Vikings team with this sneaky acquisition of Jordan Mason that I'm really pumped about. He was somebody that I hated going against in fantasy last year because he was someone who was very dominant very early on in the season and was a great draft pick for whoever picked him up in our draft. Now, Minnesota, we get to reap those rewards. I get to get a measure of revenge in that sense. And he's going to be someone that if you guys aren't looking at on your draft board as a running back 3 combo or a flex option, he is somebody that should definitely be at the top of your list right now, because we've seen with Aaron Jones, he's capable of putting up RB1 numbers in fantasy. But with Jordan Mason going there, it's probably going to dip a little bit, but Jordan Mason will be more than a touchdown reliant fantasy option, and he will be somebody that the Vikings will utilize in many different ways and in a lot of situations where he'll be capable of scoring more than 1 touchdown a game and getting a lot of yards doing it. But what do you guys think about all this as a whole? Are you excited about Jordan Mason coming here? Do you think that we're still going to draft a running back in the draft? That's something that we didn't even address in this video, but I think it's something worth mentioning a little bit here, is that we were all hyped about them possibly drafting Cam Skattebo. But with this move, do you think that we will still go out and draft Cam Skattebo or a running back at some point in the draft? Let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments below. I know this is a very sneaky move that we didn't expect to drop on a Saturday of all days, But here we are talking about it, and we're excited to see what this Vikings offense is going to look like next season. Kevin O'Connell has a lot of toys to work with. Brian Flores has a lot of toys to work with on the defensive side, and this is going to be a very special season, I think, for the Minnesota Vikings. Hopefully, by the time that the season rolls around, we're just as hyped, and by the time that February rolls around, we're here talking about us not only playing in the Super Bowl, but taking home the Lombardi. Skol all the way to the bowl, guys. Let's go Vikings. Thanks again for watching.